this video, we provide an introduction to polypainting. Polypainting lets you paint directly on the surface of a 3D object without needing to first calculate texture coordinates, known as UVs. Polypainting offers benefits over traditional texturing, enhancing flexibility and precision. For example, the texture resolution does not need to be predetermined in advance. This is particularly beneficial when we need to enhance the overall texture beyond the initial original plan. Instead of creating a larger texture map in an image editing program, we can directly transfer our polypaint onto a larger texture, eliminating the need for post-processing. The UV mapping process is also exceptionally flexible. Using the polypainting method, texture coordinates can be created at any time, and the painted surface is then precisely transferred onto these coordinates later on. If the UVs turn out to be unsatisfactory, we simply create a new one and transfer the surface painting directly onto the new texture coordinates. Let's do a bit of painting. The process of polypainting involves directly applying color to the polygons of the 3D object. Accordingly, it applies that depending on the increase in the polygon count, the capture of color information also increases. The more polygons, the more precise the color application. We increase the polygon count of our object in the geometry section. And here at the top we see the current polygon count. Now, let's activate the RGB button and disable surface deformation using the Add button option. Now down here on the left, we can define a color that we want to see on the model. Now, something surprising happens. Our entire object gets colored, even though we haven't applied anything. This can be explained as follows. The surface of the object currently contains no background color, which enables the application in the first place. That means, in order to paint on the object, we first need to fill it completely with white paint. We do that right up in the color palette. First, we select the white color, and then we proceed to click on Fill Object to apply the desired color. Now we can finally begin our work. If we reduce the polygon count of the object, we can begin to get a clearer idea of the reduced color information. The change becomes immediately visible. In polypainting, the more polys there are, the more accurate and sharper the texture will be when it is later baked into a high-resolution map. In the tool menu on the right side, we have the sub-item Polypaint available. Let's take a look. Currently, the Colorize feature is active and enabled. Polypaint functionality is currently activated and in use for your project. If we choose to deactivate the button, we will then clearly see that our active color will color the entire object once again. That's why, whenever we plan to paint, we should always check here to ensure Colorize is active. We also have the option to generate the polypaint from any specifically chosen texture. To achieve this, the object must have texture coordinates. Up here we prepared a sphere with its own set of texture coordinates. Let's go ahead and enable the texture. To convert the texture, go to the Polypaint menu and click Polypaint from Texture. The color information on our 3D object is no longer applied as a texture. We can now choose any color and continue painting directly on the object. Once we have completed the coloring process, we should proceed to the Texture Map section. Here, we have the option to easily convert polypaint into a new texture. To achieve the desired texture size, we need to navigate to the UV subpalette and adjust the resolution to the specified dimensions. To finalize the process, click on New from Polypaint. More details on advanced polypaint techniques will be explored in upcoming tutorials. In the next video, we'll look at the materials.